Let's
The
see if
joy
this is the one here.
of that feeling of when it doesn't go right the first time that we would like it to go.
Oh man, this is so much a part of it that in my mind I was like, hey, there's three different ways we can go about this. I'll just dive right in. I'll send you the presentation. I'll text it to you, WhatsApp, we'll make it work.
I appreciate
So
it.
you can see that and you can
Yes, we can see it.
everything. Okay, perfect. Okay.
Love it. Thank you,
Thank
Pastor.
you so much, Pastor. And we really start with a little uh, experience there in practice. You saw what happened sometimes, not sometimes, you're communication directors with various uh, levels of experience and just touch with this area. When things don't go specifically the way we need to in technology, there are a lot of things that you can do. And one thing that we can do is, become frustrated or upset. But we're going to jump right in. And before we do, let me pray with you just one more time. And then for the sake of our time here, we'll just jump into the to what I'd like to share. So let's pray. Father, what a blessing it is to be with this wonderful group of people who are passionate about you, about sharing the gospel, about using every mean that's available in order to do so. So give us minds and ears to hear you, to learn from you, and may you continue to guide us as a church so we can share this everlasting gospel to all the world. For this we pray in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right, so technology in ministry, and I believe that many of the presenters, let me make sure I am recording because he did ask me to record on this one. Let me see here. Oh, I am. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Believe so. Okay. This gospel of the kingdom will be preached to all the world as a testimony to all the nations, then the end will come. That's really the goal. That's the mission. That is what excites me to do this and to share the gospel and to be a part of this ministry. What does this mean though? And hopefully this will work. I'll just skip over this. It's really the little intro. Can you genuinely date online? Why do I have this slide up here? And I'll be in 2006. I was a theology major at Atlantic Union College, and I was a theology major at Atlantic Union College. And I remember we were having this class on relationships, on conflict resolution. And at the time in 2006, somebody asked the question, "Can you date online?" And in 2006, I remember being in that class and when this topic came up, it became very passionate topic. And I don't know if you remember what you were using in 2006. And sort of the overall answer was you really can't do much online because online doesn't offer a good platform and you cannot create genuine and lasting connections there. And I was one of those people, interestingly enough. And a few years later, we fast forward to today, and I am literally one of the things that I do is the digital church senior pastor. And there's a reason why senior pastor is because I used to be the associate pastor. The president of our conference, we'll talk about that just a little bit, was the senior pastor for a little while. And so, how do you go from in 2006 saying you really can't have connections to 2025? Now, I am literally my role has been specifically in trying to develop and create a ministry online that actually engages with people. So, one of the things that I've learned is we hold judgment sometimes just a little bit, and I know that in your ministries, the context of this presentation really is I will be sharing with you. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. You can sort of raise your hand, and at the end we'll have a Q&A. I believe our time is 6:30, 7:30, so we'll keep going here for the sake of our time together. Again, just a little bit about myself. It was already said, a lot of these things. And my pet peeve, I'll go all the way down, is as you can see here in this text that there's my wife, my son. He is 9 years old now, so a little bit younger in that picture. And I know in that picture I look a little bit different. There's a reason for this. And I don't know if you see there the one of the last points. My pet peeve is too many words on a PowerPoint slide. which makes the whole thing just a little bit too hard to read, which is what we have here. But I used AI on that picture in order to increase the resolution. And when you think about technology, for many of us, that's what we think. Oh, we're going to use these tools as toys, entertainment, and things of lesser value. And I don't know how many of you were with Pastor Daniel just a little while ago. And look at that. I tried to take a picture of myself and put it in Mid-Journey, which we were using. It's this sort of artificial intelligence image creation platform. And that's what I came up with. I don't know if I'm very happy with that, to be honest with you. So this is just a little bit of levity here as we begin. And that was Daniel. I actually like his better. And I'm glad this is being recorded to share with all the world. And that was him. So if you were with him in just a little bit, you can see. But the point is this: technology is not a toy, just like of what I showed you. It's really a tool. If we look at technology as just a form of entertainment and a form to waste time in, then sure, we'll already start at a point of tension in the church. But I see technology as just another tool for the gospel, because the church is God's appointed agency for the salvation of men. It was organized for service, and its mission is to carry the gospel to the world. Like, that's the church. And so the question really is, where do you begin the conversation of technology and ministry? Because let's be honest, for many of us, we begin the conversation with, I want to buy the most expensive camera. And I went hiking. We have one of those expensive cameras that we use. But if we start off with, I want to have the best gadgets, the best toys, then in our board meetings, really the vote will never get to the point of let's invest, because we'll be missing the point. The point is, you start with what you have, and then after that, the Lord will bless the way, because you're doing the mission. You take a step out in faith. I don't know if you remember this. I don't know if you'll be able to hear any of this. I know sometimes we need to share also the audio. Were you able to hear that? I don't know if you can just give a little thumbs up.
Unfortunately, we cannot hear the audio.
You cannot hear. That's what I imagine. But you can at least see it. Picture, imagine these sounds as it rings. Do you remember American Online? As you would dial in, I remember back in my house, I would have to ask my parents to get off the phone so that I could use the internet. And in order for that to happen, then you can go and access online. And there are so many things here of what it used to be. Do you have any flashbacks with these pictures? Oh, goodness gracious. I remember the Tamagotchi like it was yesterday. This was back in Brazil when I was still there. Unbelievable. Still use the phone. I remember using that phone. You want to do a test with your Gen Z, Gen Alpha, kids and young people in the church, just ask them, hey, can you show me what it looks like to hold up your phone? For many of us, we still do this because you hang up. For the Gen Z, they'll do this, or they'll do this, and they'll hold up their phone. It is just fascinating, the level of acceptance and relationship that we have with technology. Because if we were to look at all these tools right here, some of them we would consider as life-changing blessings and curses all at the same time of communication. But some of these we will look at a complete waste of time. The question is where do we stand? Where do you stand as a leader who is setting the culture in your local church? Do you stand in the camp of, this is just a form of entertainment that I will use because it's fun, because it's nice? Or do you stand in the camp where you see communication like a phone line that connected the entire world? Now, in this world, unfortunately, we live in a fallen world. If there was conflict in heaven where it was perfect, there will be conflict here. And everything that's good, the enemy takes and makes it bad. So for every blessing that we have from the Garden of Eden to today, if you have something really good that God has inspired you to do, you can expect some sort of strong conflict and resistance. But the point is, we cannot stop. Public radio broadcast started on November 2nd, 1920. And then within a couple of months, it were on the church's services. They were on the airwaves. And the Pittsburgh, this is in the NAD, North American Division, United States, Pittsburgh Episcopal Church was one of the first to try this technology. Now, let me share something with you guys. I have the privilege to be doing this, just to study a little bit more. Specifically, my study in Andrews has been with a mass doctoral studies in mass media for ministry. And just doing a little bit of studying, my focus will be on online mentorship and the tool, using tools online. We can talk about that later. But back in the 70s, there were already terms such as the radio church. This is the 1970s. You have documents that will show you that people at that time in the 70s and the 60s, which it's not that long ago. I'm just saying, today we think online church is such a new concept. It really isn't, because this radio church, people would connect so much with the host from the radio shows that they saw that host as their pastor. So the church, even the Adventist church and other churches, they notice a need to expand and to invest on radio. And we did that with a lot of excitement because we saw it as a tool. So again, as a leader in this field, whenever we come and we're talking to other leaders, we have the opportunity to really clarify and communicate, which is a two-way street, the purpose of this, which is not new. And let me just say this before I continue, because I will share about the digital church that we have, is that we unequivocally view church in person as the ideal, while being intentionally open to these cutting edge digital solutions. What do I mean by this? I'll explain this in just a little bit. The reason being, very simply, I've done some of these presentations with at this point hundreds of pastors. And I think one of the first things that comes up is, will technology in ministry replace in-person connection? And that's the fear, is the moment you have things online, people will stop coming in person. The point is that this has never been a ministry to replace, but to enhance local ministry. I don't know, some of you may have healthcare. I don't know how it works in England, but here you have telehealth, where you can call your physician, a nurse, and they can give you some support via the screen. My wife, she's a nurse practitioner. She literally she sees patients from the house. They bring this little screen there in the clinic, and at any given night, she oversees about 25 clinics and 200 to 300 patients. Now, is that the ideal? Is that the ideal that we would like to have for healthcare? I don't know if anybody would go, yes. The ideal would be that you would have a nurse for every patient, a doctor for every family, and a visit that's not rushed. But that's not the world we live in, is it? So do we say, hey, because I don't have that, therefore you cannot have any other tools? And it's interesting that when we talk about healthcare, and that's one of the things that I've been studying, is you can use it as a tool. And it's been used as a tool, the online technology, for eons in this world. Harvard University, they use their online mentoring and teaching program, online universities, since 2008 or 9. It's just that we as a church, after COVID, we've sort of been really pushed into this field. Now, I won't spend so much time on this one. You must be wondering, what is this? What are these pictures? And I'm a pastor. I love illustrations. I think that's how Jesus, relates to us, and that's what I do. But there was a photographer called Christian Vaylor, and he did this series called Dogs Catching Treats. He did it because of two things. He loved dogs. He loved photography. He started with what he had. It was a small little phone at the time, but he began to take pictures with dogs getting treats. And then he went viral on Instagram. Then he went viral, and then the New York Times picked him up. And then I saw his news. And his point was this: you start with what you have, and you be consistent, and you see beyond where you are, and you go ahead for it, and you do it. And now I'm looking at this, and I'm like, man, he's doing this with dogs eating treats. Why am I missing the opportunity for ministry? And the point here is this, technology and ministry is a easy treat that we can use. Use this model that we are living in right now as a church group. I am here literally in Tennessee. Daniel is right now in Alabama, in England. I mean, we are all over the world. So when you go back to the church, it's like, can you do technology and ministry? You can use the model that we're in right now. Even before I talk about online and digital church, you can use this model and bring it back, because we are doing ministry using technology. And there are some things, let me say this, the technology and the digital world cannot replace. For the Bible tells us that it's not good, right, in Genesis, it's not good for men, for people to be alone. We know that. But the Bible also tells us, and this is very important, we actually have a marriage counselor coming down to our conference to do some talks on the challenges of the online world within marriages, and this perception of, these videos of husbands doing everything that the wife would want them to do, and then they take the video and they share it with the husband, and now there's this false reality. And the other way around is the same thing. The point here is this: there are some things that you cannot replace online. One of the first blessings in scripture was be fruitful and multiply. The point is, to be one, you need to be together. There's some things that you just cannot do, that ministry, online ministry, cannot replace. Now, Barna, which is a research institute here in the United States and the North American division, they came out with a study. And in Barna, by the way, we partner with them as the Adventist Church for many studies that we do for demographics, to understand trends in the church. We did a millennial study with them years past. When I say we, I mean the Adventist Church in the United States. And so one of the things that they saw was this: a few things that you can do online and in person. You see it right there on the screen: spiritual engagement, preaching, worship, and the sort of evangelism. Because we can do what we're teaching right now, right? You are receiving information. I'm sharing with you a bit of information. So there is this exchange happening, and it is possible. However, and there are some things that you cannot do online. For example, this what's called interpersonal responsibility, inconvenient hospitality, and institutional physicality. What does this mean? How are you going to wash somebody's feet online? Sure, I know COVID happened. Some of us did the whole, communion bread, and then you ship it and you receive it in a sealed package. But come on now, how are we going to wash each other's feet? How are we going to clean each other's wounds? How will we baptize and go into the water? And I know I work with young adults. I have examples they give me: Pastor, you can just become a hologram. And then you just, tell them, hey, we're going to go in the water right now. And they come up. We joke about it, but how can you feed the hungry and literally put food in the plate online? We can raise money and funds. We can raise awareness. But there are some things that we need to be in person for. And there really isn't a way to replace that. And we're very comfortable with that reality. So we don't come in with this presupposition of everything that we do right now we can replace online. That's really not the case. And you will find tension, and you will find a negative response towards this, because even in the 15th century, when the printing press was created, this abbot named Johannes Trithemus, he was not a fan of the printing press. You want to know why he wasn't a fan? Because he said it would make people lazy. People were not a fan of the printing press. So don't be surprised if people are not a fan of the tools and technologies that you're using today. Because if in the 15th century they had already challenges, will you not have challenges today? They mentioned, we can't allow monks to use, they have to memorize things. We can't make it mass publications of this. It will cause havoc in the church. And it did. We had the Protestant Reformation, and the Bible was sent out to all over the world. Disruption. And we are going through a disruption right now. Let me just go through this a bit quickly because I want to get to a few things. Again, with this Barna research, only 1/3 of the connected generation often feels deeply cared for around them, or that someone believes in them. Or 1/4 of 18 to 35-year-olds, that's the group that I'm in, they encounter a feeling of loneliness. The unemployed students, women, and unmarried young adults are groups that experience greater isolation and anxiety. What is this saying is that the more we can have the illusion of being connected without actually being connected. So you, working in the field of technology, you have this ripe and open field to connect with people, to ask them, how are you doing? Online, how can I pray for you? Not just to be posting things, but to actually try and make human connections. Why is this important? Because we men and women need to pray to God for wisdom. That under his guidance, he can put new life into old methods of labor and can invent new plans, new methods of awakening the interest of church members and reaching the men and women around the world. This is written in 1907, that we need to use the newest methods available. Now, I won't spend so much time in this. You may have seen this before. I was doing a little bit of research on how the metaverse was being used for ministry. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a bit of a waste of time. People go in there to just play games. And in the South American division, they created a small group online where over, I believe, 1,000 people received Bible studies through the metaverse. Metaverse, for some that know, you have it used to be called Oculus, and you put the glasses on. What are they called now? Goodness gracious! You have the Oculus. That's the name that I'm remembering them by. I have one because we're going to be doing some testing with some mentorship initiatives in our conference with this virtual reality thing. So anyways, they did it. They have a room there. We've been actually talking to them. They've opened up their room so that we can use and go in there and have conversations. Now, there are limits and guidelines, just like anything. If you spend more than 15 minutes inside, 20 minutes, you start to get a headache, so you may need to use it on your phone. You can use it messaging. This young lady here is Zauda, of 78 years old. She used a chat. At the time, it was a chat bot that would connect you with a real person. And at 78 years old, using her phone on WhatsApp, she made a decision to follow Jesus. Using her phone in a low-income area in the South American division, she decided then to follow Jesus. Now, we were excited about that. And we thought, what can we do with what we have? And so this is just a little clip. You won't be able to hear it, and that's fine. I'll give you the links later so that you can see it, because I know that there's the little way here that I can share my audio with you as well, but we'll just keep going. This is what we're doing right now with the Digital Church. We said here in the North American division, we don't really have a lot of music that's made for the church that we can use. And we don't have this connection between young adults and everybody else. So we said here in the Digital Church, what can we create? Because everybody's doing something. We didn't have the funds. We really, at the time, didn't even have the personnel to help us record. And what you can't see behind the scenes here is that's Michelle. She's a volunteer. She's a music producer. She's a professional. And she said, I'll do it for free. The young people there playing the guitars, one of them is a pastor. The other one was a volunteer from a different country. And in the background, we have a cameraman that gave us his services, donated his services for free. He worked for the National Geographic for a few years, and he still works with them, and he works for several governmental agencies. And he said, I'll work with you guys because you want to do something, you can't do it, we'll help you. So the point of technology and ministry is, even when you don't have the resources, you step out in faith, you cast the vision, and then the resources will follow. Now, this is the Digital Church, and you can maybe take a little screenshot of that or anything of that nature. Sometimes it just makes it easier. Our website is going to be revamped. I don't even go there myself because the website, we really need to do it well. And we're working in a rebranding right now. But the Instagram pages, that's something that we are very excited about, is that institutional pages have a really hard time growing. Let me just say that. If you start a page just with your name, Marcelo, I have my page, it is so much easier for you to create connections. But when you have your church's page, it's difficult. It's challenging because people have a hard time connecting to institutions. People connect with people. Therefore, we are trying to make these connections online, and they can text. And when you text something, I believe that should still be active. I still get it on my phone. We get it from time to time. We're working with other pastors that will help, and then we can talk to them. So we have a good amount of people that engage there. But we also have Digital Church in Spanish. And I don't know if you experience that in the same way that I do. By the way, I understand Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. We have our Spanish-speaking pastors that do an amazing job at recording. So we produce in two different languages. We basically produce the same content, but in two different languages. And they're doing a lot better. But I'm not surprised because usually there's a lot of cultural nuances there that engage us more into community depending where you're coming from. But the point is, so a little bit of the testimonies that we've had. Oh, and by the way, we were the first fully digital church that was launched in the Southern Union, and I believe the second one in the North American division. This is a big deal for us because we can see how God works with the littlest of people. It's like when they looked at Jesus and said, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" That's sometimes what happens here with our conference. Like, can anything good come out of Gulf States? Not because it's not a good place to be, but because the resources. Our neighbors, we have about over 300,000 members in the Southern Union. Over 300,000 members. We have one of the largest conferences in the entire world. They're our neighbors. And here we are getting calls from them, and they're asking, how are you recording these things? How is that happening? We had somebody visit the studio to see what we were doing. Little did they know that we started in a closet, because it's not where you are. It's not what you're doing. It's just that you do it, and you do it consistently. And so that was launched. And this was really cool. This is not, we need to be really careful with ministry, because I've been a part of a lot of these presentations. And sometimes what happens is we get really excited, but then we get really discouraged all at the same time, because it's like, wow, that's cool, but I can't do it. This is one of the moments in history that you can do it if you have a phone on you and you're taking the right classes, because the resources, they will follow later. And then, the article was sort of shared everywhere, and then basically it's the same one and the same pictures. But this was really cool because we could see how God had been working. And some of the testimonies, I won't read all of them, but I was talking to a few people. I knew I was going to do this presentation and share a few ideas and thoughts with you. And Jennifer, she's 39 years old, and she said, my grandmother's 84 years old and cannot walk. For years, she's been relying on television programs and radio to hear the gospel. Right there, the first paragraph. For the first time, she'll have an actual pastor who personally thinks about her and ministers to her. Though she will use the same means to listen and stay connected, the intentional support and local community and the digital church changes everything. The point is this: it's not me, Marcelo, because I can be moved just like any other pastor, right? Things happen. But the ministry that the digital church provides is it's local. It doesn't matter if you have $1 million to create your studio. It doesn't matter. You know why? Because there's one thing that nobody can do that you have, and that is to be you. Nobody can share the gospel like you share the gospel. Nobody can have conversations like you have conversations, because you're unique. So you can literally start, and that's the whole point today, is the world is looking for real connections. Sure, we have 3BN. We work with them. Hope Channel. Daniel came from Hope Channel. We love those people. I watch them probably almost every day. But we also have the space that we can do it locally. And I know that they're actually encouraging all of us to do the same. And you see the bracket there are the age groups. of the people that have these testimonies. I won't read all of them. One that I love, it's one of my favorites. It's the last one, Natalie. She's 12 years old. And she just says, it's cool. we get to feel like we see our church everywhere and anywhere. And one of these young ladies were actually the ones that recorded a video with us recently. We started what's called the Next Gen Mentorship, a ministerial digital church communication initiative here with Pentecost 2025. It's a North American division thing. The whole point is that I meet with young people via Zoom. Why? There's a reason. We don't do this just for fun or because we want to do it online. You know what the reason is? He lives 6 hours from me. That's Joel and his mom. Joel, at the age of 14, 13, he saw the digital church one time and he told his dad, and he said, Dad, I never knew that I could do ministry online. I want to be a pastor. This gets me emotional because that to me, it's what it's all about. And so I can't drive to Joel every week. He lives 6 hours away. But we can use technology as a tool for ministry and not just a toy. And in a little bit, I'll stop so that we can have this time for question and answers. I just wanted to share some more here with you. Why is this important? Why do we need to use technology for ministry? Let me just give you a little bit of the background that we even shared here with our conference at the time. Where do you learn about finances? And this is another research that was done. Fascinating. 41% of this is young people. They talk to close family or friends. That's pretty obvious. But notice the second thing, internet research. I think many of us do that. How much things cost on Amazon. Here now we have apparently this Temu thing that everybody uses. Be careful with that. But to me, what stood out, you want to know what it was? Can you see there the 8%? Talking to a pastor or religious leader, or 18% social media. I am like one of the last ones that they would talk to first or learn about finances. And this includes going to church. So to me, there is a field that's ripe for engagement. So you have there, talking to close family and friends. So the question really is, and there's a book that's called Digital Church in a Lonely World. How can we build authentic community in the digital era? Is online church a viable biblical model? Will the future of the church be online, in person, hybrid? All these questions that swirl around us. And one thing that was very interesting is that post-pandemic service preferences, this was huge as to why we did digital church. After COVID, a lot of us said, hey, let's go back to church and meet in person. And of course, I have my church. I'm going to church this evening here. We do some training here at the university with the young people. But what's interesting is it's not the fact that that technology replaces in-person ministry. You can see that everybody believes that we should go back to primarily physical gatherings, as you can see. And then you see this stark drop of primarily digital gatherings. You see the contrast there, but then it goes back up. And these are the different, all adults, Christians, practicing Christians. You see that when we talk about both, 1/3 of the US population, that's about, here for us, about 100 million people say we should have both. Now, I don't know how many of you use Google Maps in general, Waze. Maybe we should go back to just paper maps, or could we have both? What if you lose connection? It's important to have a paper map in your car. So again, the talk about technology is never to replace, but to enhance ministry. And I'll go through this very quickly. We don't have here a bunch of time to talk about AI, but I would like to say this here, and I saw this in the UK, and here's what I want to sort of close with, is that John Comer, in this ruthless elimination of hurry, I think it's wise to cultivate a healthy suspicion of technology. That technological and even economic progress does not necessarily equal human progress. We know that Facebook itself, in its own internal research that came out, that about 25% of young people struggle with self-image. And that's tough because it's the world in comparison and living in comparison with each other. But young people today, we know as well that about 40% leave the church after they join. And that 3 in 5 church adults believe that the church should continue to leverage digital resources for discipleship even after the pandemic is resolved. We're not replacing, we're enhancing ministry here right now. And you have these resources, digital discipleship and evangelism. That's right there in Avenant Source. There's a term nowadays called digital Babylon. I don't know if you've heard that term before. Confusion, misinformation. So if you want to share the truth online, the 3 angels message, you go online because there's this terminology there. I wanted to share there with you just the treat, and then we can open up for questions. Let me stop here, and I'll even stop sharing just so I can see everybody. It is a treat that we have to use technology for ministry. The question is not so much, will we use technology for ministry? Will we use technology at all? The question is, how will we use technology? Because we're using technology right now as we speak to each other. So we live in this world, and when Jesus came to this world, he came in a less than ideal form. I think he probably could have done better than come in human form. But he said, I want to communicate with the people that I love the gospel. So I will come in a way that they understand. So are there ways that we can communicate technology in ministry in a way that our young people, that the church will understand? I know this was like a fire hose of information. Do you have any questions or comments at this time? I don't want to take all the time. I know I sort of breezed through some of the AI conversations, which are very interesting to have. But please go ahead. If you have, this is the time. You can unmute yourself. You can put it in the chats. If you have any questions, comments, if you'd like to share something about what you do using technology in ministry or some project that you're trying to develop, because I didn't really get into how we introduced the digital church idea to the team, to the conference, really. Wow, I think I did such amazing. That's what I remember my teacher saying this. We covered everything that we could have. So let me say this right now. Let me see if I can bring this up. Right now, you know that if you go into the Journal of Ministry online, let me see if I can put you a link. Journal of Ministry, AI, SDA Church. You can find, and I'm going to put a link to it, you can find articles and resources on how to use technology in ministry online. You know what my hope and goal from spending this time with you, it's one that's very simple. It's not that you'll come out of this and go viral, though that's the point, to share the gospel with everybody. I heard this week a pastor who's a pastor from a mega church who's done ministry online, and he said, doing ministry, especially in an online context, is very difficult because we're always looking at the page next to us that has 1 million followers, at the page that has thousands of likes. But we are in the audience of one. We're not called to be successful. We're called to be faithful. Faithful to the tools and technology that we have, and to be good stewards of the resources that we have, that God is using us. And again, if you have any questions, this is the time. I don't want to leave you here hanging, just wondering, I could have asked the pastor this. I know this was recorded. Or any wonderings about digital church and how we meet, or how to pitch a project. I can talk a little bit about that as we close here. One thing that was really important to us was how could we share the digital church? It was literally myself and Daniel sitting in our living room saying, we have a good opportunity here, which is to create content online. And thus, what we did was we spoke with our leadership, and we said, look, every organization has an arm that does mission online. What's ours? That was it. That was a very simple question. It was, we had a chance to speak to Sam Neves, Associate, I believe, Communication Director for the General Conference. We had a chance to speak with several of the Hope Channel representatives, and we saw sort of the funnel of the people that they reach, of the demographic that they're talking with. And what we noticed was in the local church, we have our own demographic. In our conference, we have our own demographic. And nobody can replace that. You can have $1 million budget, but nobody can replace the fact that last week you were with your church and you ate food together. And you can say, last week, the food that we had together was amazing. And then you can talk about those experiences online. Nobody can replace that. No amount of money can replace friendship and true connection. So the question is, in everything that you do online, whether it's in your bulletins, whether it's in your Instagram pages, do you have a link? Do you have send a message here, text here? We call those CTAs, or call to action. Everything that we do, we should create an opportunity for people to take the next step. Like right here, what I would say is I'm also going to put my email there at the bottom. And if you have questions or comments and you want to send that in and you're looking for more information, that's a sort of a call to action. Feel free to reach out. You see how easy that is? And let's keep this conversation going. I use this just as an example to share with you. But do you have anything specific that maybe I didn't touch on? Or something that you were like, man, I was in this workshop and I thought we were going to talk about this, but we didn't. And maybe it's something that we have here, but it just wasn't brought up. Anything on that end? Go for it.
I have a question, in relation to your experience when you were setting up the digital worship. What are some of the mistakes you feel you've made along the way, and if you would advise like a church starting out to kind of stay away from, to be able to reach, I guess, success at an earlier, like at a quicker speed than maybe you might have done?
Trying to do too much too soon. We have a lot of ideas. We want to do all these different things. But we look at where we want to be and not where we're at. And so with the digital church, we started, and the moment we started, we said we have the right equipment. Therefore, we can be just like this ministry or that ministry. That's a very frustrating place to be, because you'll never be that. God has made each of us, that's what we're learning after 3 years almost of digital churches. God has made us to be us. We can learn from others, the principles, but pick one thing that you will do and do it well. And prayerfully bring your group together. Let me say this. You know what's more important than the actual technology is to have a good team around you. I would never be able to do this without the Lord. That's just waking up in general. Without Daniel, that came from Hope Channel. I wouldn't. But this was conference-wide. At the local church, I had a young person that loved using their cameras. You need to have a good team around you, and praying, asking the Lord, how can I have a good team? So we tried to do too much too soon, and I feel like that was very frustrating for us. So now we try to pick projects, and we give them timelines, and we say we're going to do this for 8 weeks. We're going to do this for a limited amount of time, and then we'll assess, and then we'll try to do better. And find a coach. Find somebody that knows a little bit more than you do, so they can walk you through the process. We started doing that after about a year, but there is no reason to make so many mistakes sometimes when you can just, whether it's talking to Pastor Joe, whether it's reaching out to whoever, you choose the thing that you want to develop, whether it's the website, whether it's the communication, find somebody that's done it and say, hey, can we have a phone call once a month, twice a year, just so that we can go through the plan? You don't have to go at it alone. So those are the two things. It's too much too soon, and then finding too much too soon, having a good team around you, and finding a mentor, a coach that can walk you through it.
Thank you.
Of course. That one is easy. When I say it's easy, it's easy to look back and to see, oh, those are the mistakes that I've made. I can tell you the mistakes that we are making right now. Sometimes is one of the struggles that we have. Let me share something that's very current, is that we produce, I believe we produce content that's very high quality and it's great, but it's very challenging because it limits us to our conference studio and my camera. And it's, we know that TikTok or whatever platform you want to be in, you need to have genuine content. So we're actually scaling back a little bit, and we need to we're going to talk to some young people. I'm at a university this week. I'm at Southern Adventist University, and we're trying to make connections with young people to be influencers for the digital church. I think we are wrapping up here as well. Do we have any special tips for COVID lockdown situation in communicating to your demographic? All right, I won't say the name because this was a direct message. Sorry that I read it out loud. You see, this is how we work together. I was in the field when COVID happening. I was pastoring church, and our special tip was everything that you do online, we do it. The principle is we would do as if we're sitting right next to that person. I don't communicate anything online that otherwise I would not be comfortable communicating communicating in person, not just communicating, but myself with the words coming out of my own mouth in person. It's very easy to go online and just say, these are the guidelines. But hey, if you put these guidelines down, are people going to be out of a job? That may be the reality. So can we then reassess how we communicate things? I believe we need to be a lot more prayerful about communication and technology than maybe what we've been. Let me pray with you as we close here. We have about 50 seconds. And I can't wait. I'll be honest with you. I see a lot of names here, whether it's Fernando, I don't know, Allison, Evan, TJ, Everton, Rita, Sean, Benita, Jared, Robert. I can't wait to possibly hear your story in the next few months. Not having a digital church, but revamping your website, finding one young person to work with and to mentor. That's the win. Let me pray with you. Father, thank you for this opportunity to be with this amazing group of people who are the tip of the spear, innovating. Be with each person here. Help us to see what's next, but to do it in a biblical and loving way. We pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.